It was getting dark when 19-year-old Jennifer Asbenson waited at the bus stop for her ride to work on September 26, 1992. The young woman worked as a night caregiver from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. at a center for children with special needs. Unfortunately, that evening she missed the last bus and was at a loss for what to do next. The job was very important to her, and a few previous late arrivals had already caused dissatisfaction with her employer, who warned her about being fired if it happened again. Suddenly, a car stopped next to her, and a pleasant young man wearing glasses politely offered her a ride. The stranger seemed friendly and trustworthy, and given the late hour, 9:50 p.m., and her desperate situation, Jennifer accepted his offer. As they drove, they chatted casually about various topics, and the girl felt comfortable. The man introduced himself as Andrew and asked her name. Jennifer mentioned that she would be working until morning, to which he suggested having breakfast together after her shift. However, the girl declined the invitation, explaining that she had a boyfriend who would not like it. Andrew insisted and asked for her phone number. After some hesitation, Jennifer recited the digits but actually gave him a fake number. The stranger safely drove her to her workplace, she thanked him, said goodbye, and left. At work, Jennifer got distracted and completely forgot about the random fellow passenger, not expecting to ever see him again. After her shift, around 6 a.m., she exited the building and headed for the bus stop. Suddenly, the girl noticed the same car that had given her a ride the evening before. Andrew was behind the wheel again. The man rolled down the window and greeted her, "Good morning. How are you? Changed your mind about breakfast?" Jennifer laughed in response, "You just don't give up." Remembering his kindness and good intentions from yesterday, she got into the car without hesitation. But as soon as the door closed, the driver's behavior changed dramatically. As it turned out, Andrew had tried to call Jennifer during the night, but an elderly woman answered, informing him that the girl had given him the wrong number. He realized her deception and became furious, deciding to punish the offender. The man pounced on the passenger, yelling and accusing her of dishonesty. Jennifer was so startled and frightened that she couldn't utter a word. Andrew grabbed her by the hair, forcefully hit her head against the dashboard, pulled out a gun, and ordered her to turn around. Tying the girl's hands behind her back, he reclined her seat to hide her from prying eyes and covered her face with his own hat and glasses. After that, the car drove off in an unknown direction. Soon the road veered towards the desert. The hat shifted slightly, allowing Jennifer to barely see the roadside poles flashing by one after another. Her hope of rescue faded with each passing moment. At first, she tried to talk to the kidnapper, to find common ground with him, and then wanted to beg him to let her go. But Andrew rudely ordered her to shut up. At that moment, the girl was sure it was the end. But in fact, everything was just beginning. Some time passed, and the car stopped. Andrew took out a large knife and began cutting Jennifer's clothes and underwear. She screamed and struggled, but to no avail. He was much stronger and acted calmly and methodically, as if he had done this many times before. The man stuffed the girl's own panties into her mouth and started choking her. Jennifer's face first turned blue, then red. Suffocating, for some reason she imagined herself underwater, and in his eyes, so dark and cruel, she saw pure evil. It seemed that the devil himself was in front of her. He failed to girl. Then Andrew forced her to say that she loved him. Despite the gag in her mouth, Jennifer obediently uttered those words. But the kidnapper was not satisfied and began to strangle her even harder. The girl wheezed, she could neither inhale nor exhale. She closed her eyes, not wanting this monster's face to be the last thing she saw in life. A moment later, Jennifer lost consciousness. When the girl came to her senses, Andrew was biting her neck in a frenzy and yelling something incoherent. Then he got out of the car, opened the trunk and pulled out a bag of knives. At that moment, Jennifer realized that he was going to kill her. Gripped by panic and horror, out of her mind from the adrenaline rush, she jumped out of the car and ran away as fast as she could. But suddenly she felt a searing pain in the back of her head. Andrew had caught up with her and hit her from behind. The girl fell, but he instantly picked her up and dragged her back to the car. Shoving the captive into the trunk, the kidnapper threatened that now he would definitely kill her. After that, he got behind the wheel and drove off in an unknown direction. Jennifer felt complete hopelessness and lost her last hope of salvation. In desperation, she began to pray. Thoughts about how short and fragile human life is filled her heart. Jennifer realized that she did not want to die today. She felt an unexpected surge of strength and tried to untie her hands behind her back, realizing that there was no time to delay. This thought gave her strength, and the girl managed to free herself, albeit with great difficulty. Feeling the contents of the trunk in the dark, she found the lever and opened the lid. As soon as Jennifer opened the trunk lid, Andrew noticed it and slammed on the brakes. He jumped out of the car, ran to the back of the vehicle, and forcefully slammed the lid shut. The girl managed to hide her freed hands behind her back, so the criminal did not realize that his prisoner had partially freed herself. Returning to the driver's seat, the kidnapper wanted to continue driving, but the wheels just spun in place. The car was stuck in the sand. Jennifer realized that this might be her only chance for salvation. She pulled the lever with all her might, and the trunk lid opened. Without wasting a moment, the captive jumped out and ran away as fast as she could. Looking back as she ran, the girl saw Andrew chasing after her with a machete in his hands. She didn't stop, running at full speed, realizing that her very life was at stake. Running out onto the road, Jennifer desperately waved her arms, trying to attract the attention of drivers. One of the cars did stop, and the girl begged the man behind the wheel for help. But when he saw Andrew rapidly approaching armed with a machete, he got scared, locked the doors, and quickly drove away, leaving Jennifer alone with the attacker. Fortunately, some time later, 2 more cars appeared on the same road in the middle of the California desert. Jennifer ran towards them with the last of her strength. The men behind the wheel were stunned to see an almost naked girl rushing at them. Sobbing, Jennifer told them about the abduction and begged them to protect her from the armed maniac who wanted to kill her. A moment later, the girl looked around, but the pursuer was no longer visible anywhere. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. Jennifer was on the verge of hysteria. There were bite marks visible on her neck. Realizing that the girl had experienced terrible violence and now needed immediate help, the men put her in the back seat, gave her spare jeans to cover herself, and took her to the nearest gas station. From there, they contacted the Palm Springs Police Department and called an ambulance. When law enforcement arrived, they thoroughly questioned the victim. Jennifer told them the horrifying story of her abduction, how in broad daylight after work, a stranger named Andrew dragged her into his car at gunpoint, tied her up, took her out to the desert, and how she miraculously managed to escape. Police officers and medics documented the bite marks on the girl's body. Meanwhile, Jennifer called her mother and asked her to pick her up and take her home. But their relationship had long been strained, so the woman never came. Instead, she started shouting into the phone, accusing her daughter of lying and trying to attract attention with made-up stories. Hearing this, Jennifer was shocked and extremely disappointed. But worst of all, because of these words, the officers doubted the veracity of her testimony. Deciding that the girl had simply quarreled with her boyfriend and then slandered him, they only photographed the bites on her neck and let her go home. Jennifer felt completely humiliated, betrayed, and defenseless. She was terrified that the abuser would return and kidnap her again. After all, he knew where she worked and had tracked her down. What if he also knew her home address? Soon the girl realized that during the attack, her wallet and documents were left in the car. So now the maniac knew for certain what her name was and where she lived. This fear for her own life never left Jennifer for a moment. To protect herself, she was forced to move out from her parents, who did not believe in her plight and refused to support her. The girl even had to be treated in a psychiatric clinic for post-traumatic stress disorder. Later, Jennifer got 2 guard dogs and enrolled in self-defense courses to learn how to fight off abusers. Gradually, her inner strength began to return. During the training, the girl met other people who had also suffered from violence. They became close and began to support each other. It was this mutual support and understanding that helped Jennifer return to a full life. People around her admired her resilience and called her a true warrior. The girl even got a tattoo with the word warrior on her arm as a reminder of her inner strength and ability to fight. 5 long years passed before law enforcement representatives knocked on Jennifer's door again. They asked the girl to go with them to the police station. She was puzzled and could not understand what was happening. At the police station, Jennifer was shown photographs of several suspects and asked to identify her attacker. Without a shadow of a doubt, she immediately pointed to the familiar face of the kidnapper, which was forever etched in her memory. That day, the girl learned the shocking truth about the real identity of her abuser. As it turned out, he was not just a kidnapper, but a serial killer who confessed to crimes against at least 8 women. Moreover, after the attack on Jennifer, he took the lives of 3 more innocent girls. He began his bloody craft back in 1986. The killer's name was Andrew Urdiales. Born in 1965, he moved to Southern California at the age of 19. During his military service, Andrew took the lives of 4 women, and killed another one while on vacation in Palm Springs in 1995. For over 10 years, the series of murders in California remained unsolved until Urdiales was arrested in his home state of Illinois, where he had returned to live. In 1996, police stopped his car and found an unregistered firearm in the trunk. Examination showed that it was the same weapon used to shoot 3 women in Illinois. After his arrest, Andrew confessed to the crimes committed and even spoke about one of the victims who was lucky enough to escape from his hands. He thought that his criminal activity would stop there, but when no one came for him, the maniac, feeling complete impunity, continued to kill. Jennifer became Urdiales' only surviving victim. Despite the shock of the truth she heard, the girl was glad that this monster was finally behind bars. When the police asked her to testify against him in court, she understood that her words would be crucial for the verdict. But the fear of meeting her tormentor face to face literally paralyzed Jennifer. The thought of seeing Andrew again evoked an almost animalistic horror in her. However, the girl had no right to back down. Without her testimony, the jury could find him not guilty. Therefore, she had to overcome her demons, gather all her courage and tell the court about her experience for the sake of the murdered women, in order to put an end to his atrocities forever. During the hearing, Jennifer explained that before meeting the kidnapper, she knew nothing about serial killers. She grew up in a poor family far from the city, in a house without electricity, running water, or television. Only later did the family move to an urban area. The girl said that from an early age she took care of her younger brother and a disabled relative, so she later got a job at a help center for special needs children and people with disabilities. Having a kind heart, Jennifer was trusting and even naive, so she did not realize the possible risks of getting into a car with a stranger. Random drivers helped her escape from the attacker, whom the girl later perceived as guardian angels sent by God in response to her desperate prayers. Urdiales tried to prove his insanity by referring to a mental disorder. However, the examination showed that he was quite capable of standing trial and answering for what he had done. The defense lawyer claimed that the defendant's mental illness developed as a result of physical and psychological abuse by his parents, as well as abuse he suffered from his sister and cousin in childhood. Moreover, Andrew had always been a lonely recluse, with whom classmates avoided communicating. Because of his strange behavior, he was considered an outcast and bullied. He was also unlucky in his personal life, which gave rise to his hatred of women. Criminal cases were brought against Urdiales in several states, so Jennifer had to testify 3 times, that is, relive the terrible memories over and over again and look into the eyes of her greatest fear. In 2002 and 2004, the court found Andrew guilty of murdering 3 women in Illinois and twice sentenced him to death. However, He managed to escape the death penalty, the first time the death sentence was replaced by life imprisonment, the second time the state abolished the practice of capital punishment altogether. After that, the killer was extradited to California, where in 2018 he was charged with 5 more murders and the kidnapping of Jennifer. The 53-year-old criminal was found guilty and again sentenced to death. He was placed in San Quentin prison, where on November 2, 2018, a week after the verdict, he committed suicide. For Jennifer, this became evidence that the evil that Urdiales had done eventually turned against himself. Despite all the pain and suffering, the girl did not break. After moving to Los Angeles, she got married, gave birth to a daughter, and is now happy in her family life. Jennifer even published an autobiographical book, Girl in the Tree, in which she spoke about the horror she experienced and her incredible salvation. I look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. Until next time, friends.